And then there were 4. Welcome to the regional preview edition of Inside the Zone alongside Tom Davis of the News Sentinel. I'm Glenn Marini, and only 4 teams from Northeast Indiana still alive in the high school football playoffs. And when you take a look at it, you're talking about the Giants, especially in the bigger schools, Snyder, Dwenger, Lures, and you've got Southern Wells alive in 1A. Are you surprised at all that these are the final 4 teams left?
No, I'm not surprised at all that those teams are the ones that are left. One surprise was Belmont getting thrashed last weekend by Eastbrook. That was a shock to me. But these teams still advancing, still being alive, not a surprise at all. They're quality teams. They're strong on both sides of the ball, and so that's what it takes at this time of year. And
the big 5A game will be taking place at Spooler Stadium. Let's take a look at the matchup. You're talking about Snyder. They'll be hosting Carmel. Carmel coming in at 11-1, Snyder at 10-2. And Snyder did have a little tough time last week with Warsaw over at the Tigers Den, but Snyder seems to be able to step up to the situation, at least throughout this playoff system so far.
You know, Snyder's actually playing their best football right now. They're doing it on both sides of the ball. Tyler Bobilia was awesome running the option last week. And then the defense was really strong. They had to come from behind, but once they did get a lead, they kept Warsaw at bay. And so the defense for Snyder was really, really good. Whether they have what it takes to beat the #1 team in the state, that remains to be seen. That's going to be a big challenge for them. But Carmel has not been running roughshod through the sectional. All of their games have been close, and so I think Snyder has an outside chance at winning this game.
And obviously they're going to have, I don't want to say revenge, but they're going to have a little of a stick-it-to-them factor this coming Friday night. Last year, the Snyder game came down to a field goal, 24-21. Right. Andy Roop looked like he booted one. They called it back. Boom, he hits one off the crossbar, and it falls short. Is that in their mentality? Is that in their mind at any point in this week, knowing that this is a team that we played so close last year when they had Mr. Football Morgan Newton running quarterback for them?
Yes, I think that's something that the kids will keep in mind. The coaches probably won't. They'll be more concerned with the X's and O's, and last year is last year, but the kids certainly will keep that in mind. But a good key for Roop is that he was solid this past week with 2 field goals. So he's kicking well again this year, and Bobilia is much better than he was, and so the rushing attack is very strong. Snyder's playing well right now.
As far as you go, what do you think the keys are in this game, or perhaps the biggest key for the Snyder Panthers?
I think the key is minimizing turnovers against the Carmel defense. Bobilia has to be solid in running the option like he was last week, and I think that the Snyder defense will have to keep a prolific Carmel offense off the field.
If it's up to you, who do you think wins this ball game? Is it a toss-up? Is it a coin flip? Is it maybe home field advantage or Carmel with the history?
It's a very close game. Of course, I said Eastbrook and Belmont was going to be a very close game. I'm going to go with Carmel. I love Coach Tipman at Snyder. I think he's done a fantastic job in his first year, but I think Carmel plays a little bit more difficult schedule down the Indy area, and I look for the Greyhounds to pull this one out.
All right, either way, it should be a very tight ball game at Spooler Stadium on Friday night. Let's move on to 4A. We're talking about a regional matchup. It's exactly what we saw last year, except the game isn't down in Muncie. It's here at Zollner Stadium. Delta 12-0, Bishop Dwenger 12-0, 2 of the top 5 teams in their class clashing on Friday night. As far as this one goes, Tom, what do you see as being the biggest key as the Saints take on the Eagles?
Well, it'll be very interesting because Delta will provide Dwenger its first real challenge in a while. It's been several weeks since they played Snyder, and so Delta can do things offensively that the teams that Dwenger has faced in the sectional so far haven't been able to do. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball. They have a great receiver in Logan Young, who's going to IU next year. They have a very solid running game with Teddy Dawson, who's rushed for almost 1,700 yards this year. So Dwenger is going to be tested for the first time in probably 3 to 4 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. Having said that, I look for Dwenger to win. They are at home, and they are extremely strong. They have their own running game in Ramond Wright, who had 5 TDs this past week against Columbia City. And obviously Wade Markley can pass the ball as well. And, you know, Dwenger is shutting teams out right now, so give kudos to their defense as well. It'll be a closer game than the 49-20 game last year, but Dwenger should win this game.
That was my next question, was it was 49-20 2020 down in Muncie. Obviously, in different situations. They've got the turf. Obviously, a little bit of home field advantage for Delta, as we saw on Southside. Sometimes they get some of those home field calls, we'll just say. But do you read anything into last year's game? Because it seemed like Dwenger came out and really handed it to the Eagles at their place really early in the first quarter and a half of that ball game and put it away.
I think Delta will actually be a little bit intimidated from the player standpoint because they did not play well last year, and Dwenger came out and punched them in the mouth. Not literally, but figuratively. And so I think that the Delta kids have that mental block in their mind that, oh my gosh, it's Dwenger. Can we possibly beat them? And so that will hinder them. Coach Segunda of Delta told me last week after they beat Wayne that, hey, we want a redemption. We want a little bit of revenge because we did not play well against them, and we'd like to fare well, at least play well, even if they lose, play well against Dwenger. So they may play better, but they're not going to play good enough to beat Dwenger.
I think one of the things that sports guys always like to do is score compare, and I was taking a look at some of the scores because personally I look at this game and I think, okay, Dwenger's going to win it big, but versus Southside, Dwenger won 42-19, Delta won 21-7. Versus Wayne, it was Dwenger 31-21 in one of their most challenging games of the season, and 18-6 Delta last week over Wayne. So common opponents, really, the score margin isn't that different between these two teams against common opponents.
Right. Delta, they are a confident team because they're obviously undefeated, ranked 5th in the state, and when you win every single time you go out, you develop confidence. But I don't think that they have the physical strength up front in particular to deal with Dwenger. And Dwenger has I don't want to say a swagger, maybe it's an arrogance, and a good kind of an arrogance about them. Those kids are really bred to succeed. They succeed on the field, they succeed in the classroom, they succeed in every aspect of their lives. So they're going to go into this game expecting to win. I think Delta's going into it hoping they can win, and that'll be the difference.
What do you think the difference will be, I guess, final score when
I would say 10 to 12.
10 to 12 points?
Yeah.
Touchdown or two?
Yeah.
Okay, could be very close. We'll hold you